Hello YouTube, it's Shadow Hero 90, welcoming you to the 5th season of Sexism in Movies and TV. Now, there are many reasons as to why I do this review show. One of which is the portrayal of men in the media is downright horrific. It's an insult. It's why most kids think their dads are idiots. But when it comes to women, they get the get out of horrible portrayal free card. And although I do review a lot of shows and movies that are aimed at a mature adult audience, most of what I review is aimed at a young audience. And yes, I kind of do blame shows like Adventure Time and Loud House and the bulk of what usually appears on this show as being the reason that teenage boys have such low self-esteem. Which is actually kind of true when you think about it from a psychological perspective. When every single portrayal, well, almost every single portrayal of men and boys on TV and in movies is negative, of course these teenage boys, when they first hit puberty, are going to have horrible self-esteem. So, in that regard, I know that I have a noble cause when I rip apart these televised pieces of shit. So anyways, on with the review. This episode of Sexism in Movies and TV is going to be a bitch monster segment in which I target the smug little cunt herself, Lisa Simpson. And now I'm basically just going to say the obvious. The Simpsons is a show that's run for 30 seasons, and essentially going through all 30 of them to find Lisa Simpson at her worst would be enough to drive you crazy. So this episode is essentially going to be a top 10 list of moments from The Simpsons of Lisa, at best either being a childish jackass, or at worst a horrible monster who should have been killed off. And without further ado, let's rip this bitch apart limb by limb. Kicking her brother in the groin. This comes in at number 10, and in all fairness, it's not funny. Even played for laughs. She's essentially attacking her brother in a way where he really can't attack her back. In all fairness, Bart should consider having some kind of weapon on him or wearing a cup in case Lisa decides to kick him in the family jewels, because not only is she willing to do it, she does it, and she really feels no regret. I mean, this is the kid who gets strangled by his father on a regular basis. If he was if Bart had been physically abusing Lisa because Homer physically abuses him in the first few seasons, then Lisa kicking Bart in the nuts would be acceptable. But no, it's not. She is literally attacking him in a way where he can't fight back. And I want you to remember that when I get to my number 1 on this list. And one more thing. Number 10 is, well, basically an example of Bart getting cucked just to make Lisa look good, which is something that will come up on this list, but here's the thing. Bart knows at least one form of martial arts. In all fairness, I can't believe the writers did this. They literally had to cuck him and bring him down to make Lisa good. That's a sign that she's not a good character. In reality, after the first kick to the groin, Bart would have actually learned a blocking method, and the next time Lisa tried it, he would have beaten the ever-loving shit out of her. In fact, if Bart Simpson beat the crap out of his sister in an episode of modern Simpsons, ratings would skyrocket. Faking her death to impress this jackass. Okay, this clown is the leader of a group called Dirt First. A bunch of vegan environmentalist activists. And I know this guy said that Mayor Quimby had an illegal tree auction, but you gotta remember, at the end of the episode, Lisa the Tree Hugger, this clown is revealed to be insane. And because Lisa wanted to impress him, she agreed to live in the tree because the law says that Mayor Quimby can't sell it if there's someone living in it. But when it gets hit by lightning, and around the same time that Lisa essentially got homesick and decided to pay her family a visit, then fell asleep, the tree was hit by lightning, and everyone thought she was dead. You know, if this wasn't a hoax and she actually died, the Simpsons would probably have gotten better. I personally don't feel that it got worse, because I hate a ton of the early Simpsons episodes. In all fairness, those people on the internet who complain probably wouldn't be complaining as much if this was the actual ending to the episode, and Lisa was essentially killed off the show. Environmentalist activists. And I know this guy said that Mayor Quimby had an illegal tree auction. But you gotta remember, at the end of the episode, Lisa the Tree Hugger, this clown is revealed to be insane. And because Lisa wanted to impress him, she agreed to live in the tree because the law says that Mayor Quimby can't sell it if there's someone living in it. But when it gets hit by lightning, and around the same time that Lisa essentially got homesick and decided to pay her family a visit, then fell asleep, the tree was hit by lightning, and everyone thought she was dead. You know, if this wasn't a hoax and she actually died, the Simpsons would probably have gotten better. I personally don't feel that it got worse, because I hate a ton of the early Simpsons episodes. In all fairness, those people on the internet who complain probably wouldn't be complaining as much if this was the actual ending to the episode and Lisa was essentially killed off the show. In the season 6 episode Fear of Flying, Marge sees a therapist to get over her fear of flying. Homer actually is upset about the idea because he says therapists have turned neighbors against him. And he was right. She actually says that Homer is a far more serious problem than Marge's fear of flying. She even says so, and I quote, "There's still the far more serious problem of your husband." I mean, in all fairness, Homer actually warned Lisa that this would destroy the family. And I know that Marge's dad lied to the family, saying he was a pilot when he was really a stewardess, and that Marge's fear of flying came about through stuff like this. I will agree that Marge getting over her fear of flying is a good thing, but Homer was absolutely right to pull Marge out of therapy then and there. Look at the look on this woman's face. She clearly does not like Homer. It's obvious that she is a man-hating feminist. Homer says that therapy breaks up families. Yeah, and in all fairness, his was almost destroyed because of therapy. And all because Lisa thought it was a good idea. Despite what the show wants you to think, you know, the whole Homer's an idiot but Lisa's a genius thing, no, I have to say that's wrong. A genius would not do this. Homer was right on this one. That therapist almost convinced Marge to leave him. I know that Lisa was coming from a good place, but risking the family unit, as dysfunctional as it is not a good idea. And the last thing I want to touch upon in this is the hypocrisy. If the therapist was a man, Lisa would be freaking out. She'd be terrified that this guy would tell Marge to stay with Homer and do whatever he says, regardless of how crazy it is. I mean, that's how much of a liberal jackass Lisa Simpson is. Okay, and if Lisa's behavior in Season 6 wasn't bitchy enough for you, then you should see her in Season 7. In the episode Bart on the Road, she actually admits that she had signed countless petitions to shut down the Springfield nuclear power plant. You know, that place that her dad works at? In all fairness, I am kind of convinced that Lisa does not want the Simpsons family to live the life that they had. I mean, in my number 7 pick, she literally risked whether or not her parents would get a divorce, and in this one, she admits to actually trying to get her father's place of employment shut down simply because it runs on nuclear power. And yes, I know that Marge went to college, but Homer actually managed to go back and graduate. And that was before the end of The Simpsons' heyday, as a lot of the idiots on the internet put it. If Lisa succeeded in her little quest for eco-morality, Homer would be an unemployed bum, and since we all know Marge is too goddamn stupid to get a real job and hold on to it, the Simpsons would end up living on the streets, but Lisa would feel a-okay about it because she felt like she did a good thing, and I'm sure if that was an actual episode, the writers would want us to take Lisa's side. The number 6 spot on this list goes to Lisa's insane level of entitlement. I have 3 episodes that I intend to use as examples. The first being the Season 7 episode, Summer of 4 Feet 2. Essentially, this episode starts off with Lisa having been the person who edited the yearbook, and after the assertion of some geek girls who tell Lisa this will make her popular because they're out of touch with reality, Lisa instantly takes the opportunity and shoves her egotism in everyone's face by actually expecting these kids to stand in an orderly line one by one on the last day of school and pick up their yearbooks. That's not gonna happen. After Nelson asks who died and made her boss, Lisa actually answers that and says she edited the whole thing. Nelson, however, throws out the fact that if she didn't, someone else would have, and begins handing out the yearbooks himself, giving a middle finger to some of the rules Lisa was laying down. And yes, she does this despite not being a teacher. She has no authority, yet she's acting like she does. Lisa walked around, no one wanted to sign her yearbook, and then she sees that Bart not only has a line of people wanting his autograph, but a booth, like it's a comic book convention or something. Kids in both Lisa's class and her grade want Bart's autograph, as well as Principal Skinner, which should not be surprising because at this point, Bart Simpson is the town hero. He defeated those French crooks in an episode that's I can't remember the title of, and he's defeated Sideshow Bob multiple times. It's not really that far out of the blue to believe that Principal Skinner would want the autograph of his most successful student. And seeing this makes Lisa break down. Essentially, she spent the school year acting like a nerd as opposed to an actual girl, and she wonders why she's not the most popular girl in school. Where she says straight A's, perfect attendance, bathroom timer. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what Lisa is actually entitled to. And it's going to be a real surprise since this character isn't who she was when the show started in the 1980s. She's not entitled to friendship, respect, or popularity. The thing that she feels entitled to is worship. That's right, Lisa Simpson's ego is so big that she feels that by applying anything she actually earned or was given by accident, like the straight A's, which actually were revealed to be an accident, showing up to school every day, loving it, and being a bathroom timer. I'm not sure what that was since I had to go to the bathroom all the time when I was in school. Along with applying all her insane morals to her personality, that every kid in Springfield Elementary, including the teachers, should essentially just drop to their knees and worship her as their goddess. Lisa moans and complains that she doesn't get it, which is actually quite surprising. In the episode Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy, Lisa claims that Malibu Stacy is a sexist stereotype. Marge played with one when she was little, and Lisa is probably scared that she would turn out like Marge did. Lisa actually went so far as to partner with the woman who designed Malibu Stacy. Why she would think this is a problem, I don't know. To create a new doll named Lisa Lionheart, essentially to bolster Lisa's ego. But then the company rebrands the doll with a new hat. Lisa is surprised at this revelation and gets upset over it. And the whole thing that triggered the events of this episode, is that Lisa essentially had to try and play what she thinks her life story is out with her dolls, and when she pulled the cord, it actually said something girly. After all that, Lisa is actually surprised that no one likes her. I mean, it was kind of proven that they don't think like her in the episode Lisa versus Malibu Stacy, because I'm pretty sure those girls would like to have a relationship with someone other than Milhouse, don't want to waste their time in school, and probably like going to the bathroom. I mean, Lisa is entitled to worship. And I know, and believe me when I say, what comes next is gonna piss off a lot of people. And I, as the king of unpopular opinions, am just gonna say it, but Lisa Goes Gaga was not a terrible episode of The Simpsons. It was actually good. Because you see, in that episode, Lisa Simpson proved herself stupid enough to accept a most unpopular award at her school. And in the same episode, has the gall to go on about how she lost her integrity. Integrity that she never had. She sells out for things all the time. She converted to Buddhism only because Mr. Burns was being allowed to run the church like a business. In the episode where Lisa learned about magic, she sold out her teacher because the son of a rival magician actually complimented her. And you have no idea how many things Lisa would throw out the window for her insane ideals, an ego boost, or a pony. So in all fairness, Lisa never had integrity, and every episode to feature Lisa Simpson after, I'd say 2002 is essentially nothing short of an ego trip. It's basically Lisa just doing something to buff up her giant ego. And in all fairness, Lisa's ego is the problem. You know, her ego, that thing that's constantly being bolstered and risen to greater and greater lengths by her good grades that have been given to her by her bad teachers simply because she sucks up to them, and has actually brainwashed Lisa into thinking that being a jackass, liberal, feminist, vegan who just happens to be Buddhist makes her superior to every other female in town. I mean, Lisa would think she's not like all those other girls. She's not a attention-seeking gossip moron who sold out for social acceptance, dummy slut, or a housewife, which is what Lisa hates out of all four of the examples of the other girls or women of Springfield. Not to mention the fact that Lisa views her mother as nothing more than a sexist stereotype who is nothing more than a waste of a life, who only exists to cook, clean, and take orders from her fat, drunk, stupid, misogynistic husband. And that is actually how Lisa sees Homer. It's too bad she'd never get to see how Bart sees her. It would drive her crazy. And this is an example of Lisa's worst nightmare, her becoming just like Marge. I could see Marge telling this little idiot to respect her teachers, but Lisa doesn't really get that sucking up to someone is not the same thing as respecting them. She thinks sucking up and respecting someone are the same exact thing. So anyways, back to Lisa Goes Gaga. You see, the reason that this episode works is because Lisa actually tried to make herself popular by creating a fake name on the internet to defend herself. Make it look like someone out there doesn't think she's a steaming pile of shit. And it worked temporarily, but when Lisa was exposed, yeah, it instantly stopped. And here's the thing, a lot of people attack this episode and say this event is forced. No, it's not. I mean, Lisa, the reason she brought this to school and was exposed as being truth teller, the girl who defended Lisa, is because Lisa Simpson herself was so arrogant that she didn't think that she'd be caught. Now, I know that usually there are no rules to making friends, but when it comes to the idea of popularity, Lisa definitely cheated. Yeah, there was some girl on the internet complimenting her, essentially saying that Lisa's nerdy habits, or in this case interests, were cool. But she was secretly Lisa herself, and when this whole thing was revealed, Lisa lost all the popularity that she gained. And she deserved to. She didn't earn it. She cheated. In the episode, Lisa's upset because nobody likes her. But you gotta remember, for over 22 seasons, this girl will make everyone around her either give up something they're enjoying or that's important to them, or conform to her insane way of thinking, either for an ego boost or because whatever it is that that person has or is enjoying clashes with Lisa's deranged sense of morality. But to wrap up my number 6 entry, it's the fact that Lisa is entitled to worship and she has a god complex, and this is never addressed on the show. Now, I just want you to remember this one for when I get into my selection for the number 1 slot on this list. Because not only is it going to be surprising, but it also ties into this. Okay, in the episode The Computer Wore Menace Shoes, Homer gets his own website and essentially makes it an animated GIF website. He put up a bunch of animated GIFs that he finds funny. And the minute Homer asks for feedback, the episode shoves Lisa's egotism in our face, with her saying that a website is supposed to be a personal thing, and that Homer just stole a bunch of copyrighted material and threw it on his website. As far as I can tell, the flying toaster is the only thing that Homer could get sued for. But based on the fact that animated GIF sites exist, Lisa is either accidentally showing off her insane level of stupidity, or just giving Homer a lousy critique to either make him feel bad or make herself look smart. And it would probably be option 2. I could definitely see Lisa just giving a critique on not just a website, but about anything, just to keep up the illusion that she's not an idiot. Essentially giving a critique about something she knows nothing about, just to make herself feel smart. Lisa then tells Homer that that the people who own the material could sue him for putting it on his website. But here's the thing. With the amount of fan sites that were on the internet when this episode came out, if what Lisa is saying was by any means accurate, there would have been a lot of people in jail in the early 2000s. And if anything, YouTube itself, right here, the video streaming site that you're watching this on, is living proof to how wrong Lisa Simpson is, and how unbelievably stupid she is. So anyways, to put Lisa's paranoia to rest, Homer essentially starts calling himself Mr. X. And now here's the part where Lisa essentially did something to really screw things up. When Homer's site is still getting no views, instead of telling him the honest truth, something along the lines of, the internet is a numbers game, or this sort of thing takes time, she instantly tells him that he has to offer people something, which is actually not true. You don't have to offer people anything on the internet. Just look at sites like YouTube, DeviantArt, Newgrounds, and social media as a whole. And those people are being offered something. They're being offered the opportunity to see Homer's website. So, in all fairness, Lisa's idiot argument falls apart. And that one statement of buffoonery from Lisa inspires Homer to use his Mr. X persona to essentially give out dirt on everyone the Simpsons family knows. And yeah, I will blame Homer for being weak, 'cause exposing Mayor Quimby's secret swimming pool did get him into the newspaper, but then he actually goes overboard when he starts spying on his own friends for the sole purpose of gaining internet popularity. And you're probably wondering how this is Lisa's fault. Well, she was the one who put this in his head. It is a domino effect. And I know that this episode is a parody of the 1960s TV show The Prisoner, but come on, there's gotta be a much better way of writing a parody of that show than this. The number 4 slot on this list goes to when Lisa refused to be Harper Jambowski's sidekick in the episode Friend with Benefits. Okay, after Lisa's attempt to get recruits for the Magic Club went awry, because that was something she was into for one episode to make herself feel smart, the new girl at school, Harper Jambowski, joined, and sometime later they go to a concert where her dad meets Homer's dad, and they instantly become good friends. But here's the thing. Harper is a spoiled rich girl, and Lisa is an egocentric feminist. These are the kinds of girls who would hate each other. And the truth is, Harper didn't even care about magic. Her dad was just really lonely and had no one he could hang out with. Somehow she found out about Homer Simpson and how he was just like her dad, and arranged for this all to happen. For her dad to meet Homer at the concert, and that's the only reason she hung out with Lisa in the first place. Now, when you actually think about it, yeah, this really does make Lisa look like a big baby. She doesn't like being the sidekick to a spoiled rich girl. But Harper's the one who's truly being mature. She's actually putting up with Lisa so her dad can have someone to hang out with. In this episode, Homer made friends with a man rich enough to bribe Principal Skinner so that they could go out drinking. And after Lisa and Harper have their big fight, this guy, he still tries to be Homer's friend. Okay, now, the reason that Lisa and Harper got into this big fight is because whenever they hang out, they were always doing something that Harper wanted to do. And given everything that has appeared on this list, I have no clue how in any way that's a bad thing. I'm just gonna say it. In this friendship, Harper is Bart and Lisa is Milhouse. Lisa can't stand the idea of her being a sidekick. And that's what kind of drives her insane. I mean, if she was calling all the shots, she'd think this was great. There was even an episode where Marge paid a girl to be Lisa's friend, and Lisa was loving it. But since Harper could only pretend to be a clone of Lisa for so long, well, long enough for her dad to meet Homer, essentially she put her foot down, and I can't blame her. And even when Harper gets Lisa a brand new bike as a gift, Lisa does not take it well at all. She just assumes that Harper's trying to bribe her, and that's what causes the fight. Not to mention the fact that when they go into their back and forth, Harper kind of reveals that she's nothing like Lisa, and that she actually has friends. And I'm just gonna say this. Harper may be a spoiled brat, but she's a way better person than Lisa Simpson is. She actually befriended Lisa so her dad would have someone to hang out with. Do you honestly think that Lisa Simpson would ever have been willing to do the same? Anyways, the friendship ends when Lisa gives the new bike that Harper gave her to Milhouse just to piss her off. So anyways, then Lisa goes home, and her family, who was looking forward to going to the Jambowski's private island, actually get pissed off at her, and in a moment that's completely realistic, they actually chew her out over this. So anyways, Homer and Mr. Jambowski talk things out, and the Simpsons end up going with them to the Jambowski's private island. Apparently there's something for the entire Simpsons family on this private island. Swimming, mermaid petting zoo, and in a shocking turn of events, Lisa actually does feel bad about what happened. And not out of character, Harper feels bad too. They fight over a sea star, which forces the dads to choose, and the dads are no longer friends, and the Simpsons get kicked off the Jambowski's private island. I know that this episode tries to paint Harper as a rich, spoiled brat, but in all fairness, she did something completely selfless and noble. She put up with this little sack of trash so her father would actually have someone to hang out with. And that is something that Lisa Simpson would never do. I know I keep harping on this, no pun intended, But Harper is actually a better person than Lisa Simpson. And when the show started out, Lisa was apparently some kind of moral focus for the show, or something along that line. She was supposed to be like the show's conscience or sense of morality. But no, this girl, who only appeared in one episode, is more moral than the character who is supposed to be the franchise's embodiment of morality. My number 3 choice for this list comes from my personal favorite episode of The Simpsons, Homer the Great, and it's essentially when Lisa cost her father the entire planet. You see, in this episode, after joining a group that's a parody of the Freemasons, Homer instantly rises through the ranks very fast and essentially becomes the king of the world. Something that Lisa could ever handle. And then there's the fact that, like in the computer that wore Menace shoes, Lisa's words essentially cause a domino effect. And I know, it's the typical sitcom formula. Everything has to go back to normal by the end of the episode. And I don't know if Matt Groening wrote it and intended for it to be ironic, but when Lisa says getting what you want all the time will leave you unfulfilled and joyless, Homer, for the first time in the entire series, actually does something about Lisa's big mouth by having Bart, who is more than happy to help, muffle Lisa's mouth and forcibly remove her from the room. And that's kind of something that scares Lisa. The idea that she wouldn't be able to control Homer anymore. The idea that he might control the planet, and that she wouldn't be able to control him by being a daddy's girl. I mean, it does not show, but she is threatened. I mean, just take a look at the look on Lisa's face when Homer reads her the true story of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. She is sad, but she's also terrified. And she got lucky that her words took root in her father's head. Because if she didn't, when Homer eventually died, Bart would have been the heir to the throne. And that's something she really hates. Because in a potential 20 years into the future timeline, where Homer dies of natural causes and Bart is his successor, he would control the world, and he would basically take revenge on Lisa for every stunt she's ever pulled, not just the ones on this list. She was originally sad and scared because she was never going to get anywhere in life because she would never become a stonecutter. But now she's sad and scared of the fact that being the chosen one actually made Homer stand up to Lisa. He doesn't want to lose this. His words took hold, and she essentially tells him to help people and not essentially act out of greed and sloth and alcoholism. Yes, it works temporarily. Just like in the number 5 slot on this list, Lisa's advice only works temporarily. Telling the stonecutters or having them do things for others to this extent essentially is the last thing they'd ever want, and eventually drives them to a point where they turn against Homer, with Moe here saying he wants to kill him. And by following Lisa's advice, Homer gets the Stonecutter Society turned into the Society of No Homers. And they instantly tell Homer he cannot join. And Homer ends up trying to rebuild the Stonecutters with monkeys, but eventually goes home with his family. The end. The worst part about this is that not only does Lisa not get punished, but Homer is still a horrible parent and treats her in a very chivalrous manner, and still treats her like one that could do no wrong, even though he strangles Bart every chance he gets. When in reality, this would be the point where there'd be a story shift and Homer would strangle Lisa every chance he gets. And all of that is enough to make me think that subconsciously Lisa was actually trying to sabotage her dad's success. I mean, subconsciously, she is threatened by the power he holds, the fact that he's, standing up to her and denying her things, and not treating her like a spoiled princess. Lisa may not have known it, but it's easy to assume that subconsciously she wanted Homer to fall, and if he died, that would be a sacrifice Lisa would have been willing to make. But we couldn't have this scene backfire, because then they might have to write in an ending where Lisa murders Homer herself, which is not only something that she would do, but if this was the last episode, that would be a fitting ending. Especially the way Lisa is now. The moral center of the show would kind of be exposed for what she really is. A spoiled little feminist bitch who can't handle the idea of having to answer to someone who's not a woman. Every part of the episode, Bart versus Itchy and Scratchy. This episode starts off with Krusty announcing an all-girl remake of Itchy and Scratchy. Bart doesn't like it and agrees to him and his friends that he's not going to watch it. So anyways, while Lisa is filming her reaction, she apparently aims the camera towards the door because she's an idiot. Bart walks in and finds it funny. He actually laughs, and Lisa actually uploads this to the internet without telling him. After essentially uploading it all over the internet and making her brother a meme, he gets attacked by all his friends who instantly turn on him. And then he meets these brats, Bossy Riot. You see, Bossy Riot's whole thing is that they do all the bad things that Bart does, but they use feminism as the means to justify their actions. From what we see of them in this episode, which is their one and only appearance, they are a group of terrorists. And they're pissed off because Principal Skinner banned sandals. That's what caused them to form this terrorist group. You know, we never get Principal Skinner's motivation for doing this in the episode. For all we know, there could have been a fire alarm. Some kid might have been wearing sandals. They could have ran out and actually tripped down the stairs and actually broke something. And Principal Skinner might have had to ban sandals to keep this from happening again, because he ended up having to promise to the kids' parents that this would never happen again, to one, avoid a lawsuit from them, assuming that Principal Skinner has the school nurse bandage this kid up, and two, to essentially avoid a possible lawsuit should an event like this actually ever happen a second time. So in other words, he was right. It turns out that Lisa is a huge fan of Bossy Riot. She likes them so much that she's willing to watch a news report where the local anchorman, Kent Brockman, calls them out as being a terrorist group. He outright calls them Gal-Qaeda. So anyways, a few minutes after that, Lisa finds out that Bart is the fourth member of Bossy Riot, and she throws a massive temper tantrum. And in all fairness, this is something Lisa deserves. You see, Bart was the one she humiliated for not wanting to watch an all-girl reboot. She humiliated him for this by doing something that is illegal in several states. And then when she finds out he's fighting for a feminist cause, she throws a temper tantrum. Because deep down, Lisa thinks that it's her who should be the one fighting for the feminist cause. She's upset that her brother, who she views as a monster, is fighting on the side that she sees as noble and good. She outright calls him a mercenary, essentially accusing him of being the kind of person who would do something that his criminally insane arch-enemy would do solely because he's in the group she idolizes. And this would be the scene where normally Lisa gets punished, as in gets an ironic punishment for being a hellish little bitch. But no, the episode wants us to view us as justified for her throwing a temper tantrum, and then she actually has the nerve to tell Bart that he shouldn't be a part of this protest because he doesn't care about the cause, which actually makes Lisa out to be a massive hypocrite. After all, this is the girl who left Christianity for Buddhism when Mr. Burns was allowed to run the church like a business. But on the other hand, Lisa Simpson wants to be a powerful corporate CEO, even though she does think that American businesses are evil. So anyways, Milhouse in the B-plot had started a protest to get the all-girls reboot of Itchy and Scratchy cancelled and make the studio go back to the way things were originally. A protest that, might I add, actually got Krusty to react and go back to the way things were. Boys' Rights Association, BRA. I know that was intended to sound like MRA, like men's rights activist. And in all fairness, yeah, this is a parody of an MRA group. This is what the assholes who write The Simpsons think that men's rights activists are like. They think they're a bunch of whiny little brats throwing a tantrum when there are men killing themselves all over the world because of the unfair laws that were signed in because of feminism. Anyways, Bossy Riot decides that if the all-girl remake of Itchy and Scratchy isn't going to air, then they're going to destroy the cartoons that they can from the original version. Bart tries to stop them and gets tied up. So anyways, Lisa unties Bart, who then proceeds to try and talk some sense into Bossy Riot before they do something that could actually get them hurled in juvenile hall, i.e. dumping nail polish remover so that the fumes would essentially burn the eyes of the protesters. It doesn't work. The nail polish gets dumped. The fumes cause Bart's friends to cry because their eyes are being burnt or something along that line. Anyways, Bossy Riot gets away. Bart leaves the group and names Lisa as his replacement in the group. And then the episode ends with Bart Simpson spray painting the words, "The patriarchy is a wiener," on a wall with pink spray paint. And we're supposed to think that this episode has a happy ending, even though everyone outside of Lisa was essentially out of character and only doing things because the story needed it to happen. Okay, you're probably wondering what my number one is and how it could be worse than everything else on this list. Well, my number one choice on this list is here for how needlessly sadistic it is. And my number one choice is when Lisa got a restraining order against Bart in the episode "On a Clear Day I Can't See My Sister." Now, people think the episode "The Boys of Bummer" was a bad episode. But no, I disagree. Compared to the episode "On a Clear Day I Can't See My Sister," "The Boys of Bummer" is literally up there with Lisa's substitute, stark raving dad, or any of the other episodes from the classic era that the purists love so much, while at the same time attacking the modern episodes. And it's all because this episode is needlessly sadistic in ways that it didn't even need to be. As Homer sets up a 20-foot pole between them, in accordance with the restraining order, but this bald sack of crap puts a sharp, pointy object at the end. Lisa takes sadistic joy in poking her brother with it, knowing that he can't fight back. Yes, I know that Bart started this by doing an insulting cartoon of Lisa, and that was what started the fight, but Lisa herself is not innocent. She fought back, and I'm pretty sure this event was an accident. This image encapsulates everything wrong with the episode. If I could find one word to describe this episode, it would be unfair. Bart is forced to be taught by groundskeeper Willie and isn't allowed to attend recess. He's forced to live in the backyard and eat out in the rain and catch he could get a cold, an pneumonia, all sorts of diseases. And you'd think this is where Marge, the dumbass circus clown that she is, would force Lisa to destroy the restraining order. No, it gets even worse. Bart actually does get sick, and the judge refuses to get rid of the restraining order. Homer doesn't even do anything, despite what you're seeing here. He actually just sets up a little tent for Bart in the backyard. And eventually, Bart breaks down and gives Lisa the one thing that she feels entitled to: worship. He praises her like a goddess, and then she apologizes. We light the Lisa Memorial on fire because it's a reference to Burning Man. She throws away the restraining order, and this is supposed to be a happy ending. No! This is not a happy ending. You idiots have been conned. In this torture porn, which, might I add, is the ultimate antithesis to why restraining orders should be legal, Homer proves that the psychological torture he endured in the episode Love is a Many-Strangled Thing was actually something he deserved because of the way he acted in this episode. And speaking of Love is a Many-Strangled Thing, Watch Mojo put it on their top 10 list of worst Simpsons episodes ever made. I mean, yeah, this appears on that list along with Lisa Goes Gaga, but On a Clear Day I Can't See My Sister doesn't even get to be in their dishonorable mention. It's clear that these people have a liberal bias because they put 2 good episodes on their top 10 worst list, but they didn't put a torture porn, like, on a clear day I can't see my sister on the list. And like I said before, it wasn't even in the dishonorable mentions. Okay, back to the torture porn. You're probably wondering why I say that this is the perfect antithesis to why restraining orders should be legal. Well, you see, if this episode had gotten a decent ending, it would have ended with Bart getting so fed up with what he's being put through that he actually hires a hitman, which is technically a loophole around a restraining order, to kill Lisa and throw her body in a river somewhere that's at least 94 miles away from Springfield. That would have been a much better ending than seeing the kid who gets strangled by his drunk father on a regular basis get tortured so much that he has a nervous breakdown and gives his megalomaniac sister the one thing she craves more than anything else, which is idol worship. And earlier, when I said idiots, I meant all of the idiots on the internet who thought that Lisa is a good character when she's actually a train wreck. 2, the early episodes from seasons 1 through 8 were the only good ones, and yes, I know this could sound hypocritical. And 3, every moron who's gonna attack me in the comments section saying Bart deserved what he got. I mean, the boy gets strangled by his father on a regular basis, for crap's sake. This is needless overkill. If you're going to do this to a character, do it to Lisa, please. And if this episode wanted to have a purpose, it would essentially be have Bart leave home permanently and realize that he's better off and more successful without his family in his life. Homer is a jackass bully who doesn't like him. Marge is a retarded clown who doesn't give a flying fuck about him, and Lisa wants him dead. Remember the episode where Bart was like a hall monitor, and when Lisa ended up stealing a book of answers from her teacher, Bart took the blame for it? Or the episode where a feminist group got Principal Skinner fired and they segregated the classrooms by gender, and Lisa actually had to pretend to be a boy to get a decent education? I don't think you do. I'm sure as hell convinced that the writers forgot about those episodes at this point. Considering the fact that both the episodes Burns' Air and Barting Over aired before this episode, it actually just asks the question, why doesn't Bart move in with Mr. Burns and make Homer's life a living hell? Or at least that way he'd be able to give both Homer and Lisa consequences to their actions. And since the episode Barting Over, another episode that, might I add, starts off with Lisa's rampant narcissism, happened before this episode, why doesn't he just leave and never come back? I guarantee you this boy would be better off. I'm using this image because it is the perfect representation of Lisa Simpson. A spoiled little brat with the IQ and maturity of a baby. In the episode 9021 Doe, when Lisa doesn't get an A, she flips out and states that at her old school, she got so many A's, her teachers never even checked her work. Then the only good teacher who Lisa ever had asked her if that's why she got so many A's. Lisa realizes that she had just been challenged, and she instantly starts crying. Because the truth is, Lisa Simpson is not smart. Intelligence is just something that Lisa Simpson has attached her giant ego to. And I know I'm gonna get attacked in the comment section for saying this, but Lisa Simpson, or any woman who thinks like her and has the exact same mindset, is the kind of woman who would agree with what Lisa said right here, as written in the subtitles. Any woman like that is either insane, about to go insane, or is just a man-hating bitch in general. And the worst thing about this little brat is the fact that she never faces consequences for her actions. The only time that happened was in Lisa Goes Gaga. But every other time she wreaks havoc, is the catalyst of a torture porn, or does something that was mentioned on this list, she gets off scot-free. The morons who write The Simpsons treat Lisa as one who can do no wrong, and that is completely untrue. It's 100% detached from reality, and the only good ending to the Simpsons would involve Lisa getting killed. Oh, and as I end this review, I'm gonna give you a little preview of what I have planned for the season finale. That's right, if you couldn't already guess from what's on screen, I'm going after this guy in the season finale. And having given you that little preview, I am hereby ending the review.